Welcome to the Wicket.
Hello and welcome to our weekly whistle-stop trip around the cricketing world, in which we discuss happenings locally in the Gulf, regionally across Asia and worldwide. I'm Brian Murgatroyd, and with me to discuss and analyse events across the sport are Arab News columnist Jon Pike and Arab News cricket reporter Subas Humagain. Hello, gentlemen.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Hello, Brian. Hello, John.
And in this episode, we speak about a first test win for Ireland's men against Afghanistan, India's central contract announcement and the controversy it's caused, the challenges that lie ahead for England's new crop of young spinners. We wrap up the ICC Cricket World Cup Challenge League playoff tournament in Malaysia. We speak of the ongoing World Cup League 2 and the T20I Tri-Series in Nepal involving the hosts Namibia and the Netherlands. There's a T20I men's series between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka to chat about as both teams prepare for the upcoming World Cup. We discuss the latest happenings in the Women's Premier League in India. There's the first test of the New Zealand-Australia men's series to digest. We discuss the Pakistan Super League and the Bangladesh Premier League. And John and Subas, as ever, give us their highlights of the past week in cricket. So once again, lots to cover. Let's get started. We begin with our take on something momentous in the world of cricket, a first test victory for the Ireland men's team against Afghanistan in Abu Dhabi. The two sides met at a new test venue too, the Tolerance Oval, the venue next door to the Zayed Cricket Stadium, and they produced a cracking encounter which, although it only lasted 3 days, swung one way then the other before Ireland prevailed by 6 wickets. Afghanistan won the toss, batted first and were bundled out for just 155 as seam and swing bowler Mark Adair took a maiden test with 5 for 39. Ireland responded with 263, Paul Stirling top scoring with 52 as left-arm spinner Zia-ur-Rahman took his own maiden test 5-wicket haul, 5 for 64. Afghanistan then appeared to be getting on top by the end of day 2 as they reached 134 for 3, a lead of 26, only for Ireland's seamers to hit back again on day 3, dismissing Afghanistan for 218 to set up a victory target of 111. At 13 for 3 and 39 for 4, it looked a long way away, but captain Andrew Balbirnie, opening in a test for the first time in this match, made an assured unbeaten 58 to see his side over the line and claim that first win in just their 8th test match, which stands comparison with many other sides in the longest format. It took India, for example, 25 tests to register their first win, and New Zealand took 45. John, what an occasion this was, and what a win for Ireland. And remarkably, it was based on their seam bowling, something of a surprise in the UAE, as player of the match Adair, Craig Young, Barry McCarthy and Curtis Camphor shared 19 of the 20 Afghanistan wickets to fall.
Yes, it's notable that captain Andrew Balbirnie, who's actually played in all of Ireland's 8 test matches, said it was kind of overwhelming how important the win was. And he did add that test cricket is really important for the game, and it's important to us as players, and we're very privileged to play it. In fact, it was their 5th test, I think, in the last 12 months. And Jonathan Trott, the Afghanistan coach, echoed all of that and said he was very, very impressed with the way that Ireland had bowled.
Yes, they bowled very impressively indeed, particularly in the first innings when they managed to get the ball to swing consistently throughout that Afghanistan effort. Subas, for Afghanistan, I just wonder, was it as simple as reflecting that the absence of Rashid Khan, still recovering from back surgery, was the decisive factor? Or was there more to the defeat than the loss of one player?
Well, if you see the result, I think it had very little to do with Rashid. The way the toss put just 155 on the board batting in first innings. I think that too because of SOS innings from Karim Zanat, who remained unbeaten on 41. John explained how Irish Simmers put the team on front foot. I think the Afghanistan bowlers reacted as well, but it was very low total to get something out of the match. Even in the second innings, I think the top order got the start, but they could not convert, and something that's turning to be a habit lately for Afghanistan. You can't win a test cricket with momentums. I think you need to carry that forward, be consistent, and that's where they are lacking.
Yes, John, as Subas said there, Afghanistan, after their travails in Sri Lanka, where their batting collapsed twice in the test there, it's done the same here. What's the problem, do you think, and how easy is it to address it?
Well, it would be easy to say it's a lack of experience of test match conditions. Don't forget, Afghanistan, I think, have only played pretty well the same number as Ireland. I think more tests are needed. They need the experience. And as Trott said, it's not just the batting. The team also leaked runs. And he thought they could have had another 50 runs to their advantage. It would have made the difference in the match and to the result. It's really about handling the pressure at a different level in a different format. I wonder whether, in a crowded calendar, whether test matches between teams at this level might be 4 days rather than 5.
Well, it's certainly a talking point, no question about that. Subas, it was a fantastic spectacle between two well-matched teams. And as John suggested there, I wonder, did it highlight the need for a second division of Test cricket to give these sides and others more exposure to this format and help them improve, just like the ICC Intercontinental Cup did a few years ago?
Well, I do think it's need of time now. Ireland and Afghanistan are not getting matches against the big sides. And these are the teams just below who can offer serious contest as well. I think they're eager to play as well, the teams, top associate teams. And only logical thing would be to introduce another division or tournament, at least where these top associate teams can test against these untested test nations. I think it's a win-win for everyone in my eyes.
Yes, it was interesting. I saw one banner during the Nepal T20 Tri-Series, which we'll come on to, and asking for Test cricket for Nepal. And, well, it would be great if something like the ICC Intercontinental Cup was revived. So the second tier, if you like, of top international sides can get exposure to the longer format. But for these two sides now, Afghanistan and Ireland, they now switch from red ball to white, with 3 one-day internationals and then 3 2020 internationals, all of them at the Sharjah Stadium. And we'll chat about the one-day internationals, which come first in our next episode. There's been a hiatus in the ongoing Test series between India and England ahead of the 5th and final match in Dharmshala, and we'll chat about that game and the series as a whole in our next podcast. India, you'll recall, lead 3-1 after their latest win in Ranchi to seal the series. But although there's not been any cricket to talk about, there's still been plenty going on, not least the announcement of a new round of central contracts handed out by the BCCI, the game's governing body in India. The main subject of fierce debate hasn't been the names on the list, but rather the names left off, with Shreyas Iyer and Ishan Kishan being cut. Subas, this follows on from a leaked communication to the players from the BCCI a while back, which reportedly instructed them to make themselves available for cricket and for India and not prioritise the IPL. Were you surprised by the fact 2 such prominent players were seemingly singled out in this way, and is there a way back for them?
Well, if you see the names that are including the list, is a bit surprised that Iyer and Kishan have been named. But when the players don't value the domestic cricket and the board needs to step up, I think Iyer and Kishan both had got warnings ahead of that. And despite that, they didn't appear for the state in the Ranji Trophy. All said, I think they still have a chance to get back the contract if they played stipulated number of matches. And they have that talent, and I think they'll make it through. But this is a good move by India to include those players, even if they miss out on central contract. And Jurel and Sarfaraz are going to be included once they play in Dharmshala, and I think Iyer and Kishan will need to do just that.
Well, John, on the other side of the coin, India's cricketers do play a lot of cricket. The season there lasts 8 months, and for players that reach the upper echelons of the game, well, they live in a goldfish bowl of attention. Is there also a need to reflect that just maybe administrators need to give them some time to decompress, or should we be colder about this and say, look, it's your job, just get on with it?
I think there are 2 stories here. One, as Subas referred to, is the BCCI retaining control of players, especially those who get dropped from the team, and look to compensate by maximising their earning potential. And secondly is managing workload, something that other boards are doing, and India have started. Look, Bumrah was left out of the rested for the 4th test. The Indian team is also undergoing a transition, and I think the BCCI central contracts make that evident.
Meanwhile, England's spin heroes of the series, Tom Hartley and Shoaib Bashir, with 32 wickets between them, are facing up to the fact that they could go from that hero status to zero again very quickly once the tour ends. Bashir is up against Jack Leach at Somerset, and with early season conditions unlikely to require two spinners, Somerset's Director of Cricket, Jason Kerr, has admitted Bashir may have to go out on loan to have any hope of playing some cricket. And at Lancashire, Hartley will come up against Australia off-spinner Nathan Lyon in the battle for a place in his county team. John, it's a tough situation potentially for both players. What's the solution?
Well, it's a sad situation, really. In the short term in 2024, you mentioned a possible loan for Bashir. Well, Hartley said he's going to focus on his batting, which is a curious way to go. Stokes has said his understanding of the position that the counties find themselves in. They have to attempt to win trophies, avoid relegation, the county championship. They have to pick teams for conditions. They also have to try and obtain for themselves the best overseas players. Better wickets have been prepared in the last couple of years, so that needs to continue with to give the spinners some hope. You know, there's the fact that the county championship is pushed to the nether ends of the season doesn't help. I don't see that changing in the immediate future. And because it brings us back to a hoary old question, which is ban on overseas players in order to allow local talent to develop.
Well, there's all sorts of questions to try and get our heads around there. And you certainly wouldn't want to be an administrator trying to cope with all that. But Subas, on the positive side of things, have you been surprised, pleasantly surprised perhaps, at how well England's inexperienced spinners have done in the Test series?
Well, I have been impressed with how quick they have got used to the conditions. I think Bashir arrived late, and despite the hassle, he has delivered, and Hartley, on the other hand, has been useful with the bat too. It's not easy for someone who don't get to play in these conditions, but they've used their strengths well. I hope they get to continue this in their domestic setup too, so that the subcontinent tour will be easier for them going forward.
Of course, whatever happens for Bashir and Hartley in the English summer, that's one for the future. For the present, there's that Test in Dharamshala to consider, and that's what we'll do together with a wrap-up of the whole series in our next episode. It's time now to discuss the ICC Cricket World Cup Challenge League playoff that took place in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, as 8 teams set out on the journey to finish in the top 4 and so keep alive their hopes of qualifying for that next ICC Men's Cricket World Cup. Those 8 teams, Bahrain, Bermuda, Italy, Kuwait, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Tanzania and Vanuatu, morphed into a Super 6 stage after 2 initial groups of 4, with Saudi Arabia and hosts Malaysia failing to progress. And the tournament was won eventually by Kuwait, as they topped the Super 6 table with a 100% record in the second stage. Also through to the next stage of Cricket World Cup qualifying are Italy, Bahrain and Tanzania, and they finished well clear of Vanuatu and Bermuda, who failed to secure a win in the Super Sixes. John, I suspect this result doesn't surprise you very much, as before the tournament you said Bahrain were among the more experienced sides at this level.
That's true, but I have been surprised by Italy, and I don't think I'm alone. You know, there is a historical romance about cricket in Italy, in that in the turn of the 19th century, there were combined cricket and football clubs formed, including AC Milan, which was originally called the Milan Cricket and Football Club. And then last year, it seems that the Italian Federation started a strategy of recruiting professional cricketers from other countries who had some rather tenuous links to Italy, but still met ICC regulations by virtue of holding Italian passports. And 2 names jumped out at me from that Italian team, well-known performers on the county circuit in England and Wales. That's Gareth Berg and Wayne Madsen.
Yes, all credit to Italy for being a little bit creative there and managing to find some players, and hopefully that will assist in the development of homegrown players in the longer term. That's certainly what we hope for anyway. Subas, what caught your attention in the tournament?
Well, we hope that Kuwait will form favourites and they carried on the form throughout the tournament. With Wafser looks to cement his place as one of the best in the country now. I saw him playing for the senior team when he was just 15, and he just bettered himself with time. Back-to-back centuries, any form of cricket is special, and Smith looks to have done it as a senior pro now.
Well, impressive stuff that was from Kuwait, and the 4 teams who progressed, Kuwait, Italy, Bahrain and Tanzania, now join 8 others. That's Papua New Guinea, Jersey, Denmark, Hong Kong, Kenya, Uganda, Qatar and Singapore on the next stage of qualifying for the Cricket World Cup. There'll be 90 matches in total between those 12 teams, with ultimately a place in the main ICC Cricket World Cup qualifier, and hopefully from their perspective, a place in the tournament proper in Southern Africa in 2027 too. Saudi Arabia have missed out this time, but if you'd like to know more about cricket in Saudi Arabia, then there's plenty for you to read on the subject at the Arab News website, www.arabnews.com/cricket. Incidentally, 4 of the teams from the Challenge tournament, that's Vanuatu, Tanzania, Bahrain and Kuwait, have stayed on in Malaysia along with the hosts for a T20 series, and we'll keep across that for you here at The Wicket. The second leg of the ICC's World League 2, the World Cup qualifying process for the higher-ranked second-tier teams in the men's game, is ongoing in the UAE as we record this podcast, with Canada, the UAE and Scotland in action. We'll round up those matches as a whole next time, but in the meantime, let's talk about the T20I Tri-Series that's finished in Nepal. That involved the 3 sides from the first leg of World League 2, Nepal, Namibia and the Netherlands, who stayed on there to take part in the short-form tournament, which provided them all with valuable experience ahead of this year's ICC T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and the USA. The Netherlands won the series, securing a victory by 4 wickets in the final with 3 balls to spare as they chased Nepal's 184. It took a thrilling cameo from Tim van der Hoogten to get them over the line as he thumped 21 from just 5 balls with 2 fours, 2 sixes and of course a single. But the truth was that there was very little to choose between the sides in a thrilling set of matches that included a world record 100 in just 33 balls from Namibia's Jan Lofty Eaton and an incredible 135 from only 62 deliveries by Dutch batter Michael Levitt. Subas, you were there. Were the Dutch worthy winners?
Well, they certainly deserve the win, but I think even Dutch would have been surprised how closely the contested matches were. I think all matches against Nepal, including the final, was decided in the final over, and it could have gone anywhere. David and Levitt was exceptional, and I think he's been a find for Netherlands in this tour. While Nepal were shuffling around trying to get the best combination, I think Netherlands ready from the word go, and they would be happy with. I think in the World Cup, this will be their bench strength with players coming in, but Michael Levitt has been a find for the tournament.
Well, impressive stuff from Levitt, and that 100 really was an exceptional effort. John, Namibia missed out on a place in the final, largely due to one of their matches against the Dutch being curtailed by bad weather. But they still had plenty of positives to reflect upon, not only Lofty Eaton's incredible innings, but also Ruben Trumpelmann's excellence with the ball, the left armer again impressing. A hamstring injury ruined his previous time at the T20 World Cup in Australia in 2022. But is he coming into form at just the right time now?
Looks like it. He's a pretty steady performer in ODI cricket in 63 matches. He's got 38 wickets at 23.2, less exposure to T20 cricket, but useful player to have in the team.
Yes, Ruben Trumpelmann was actually part of the Desert Vipers squad in the first season of ILT20, so he got plenty of exposure there to some decent coaching, even if he didn't play any matches. Subas, what was your take on Nepal's performance, not only in this tournament, but also in World League 2 that preceded it?
I think the team is a bit unsettled at the moment. I think these 12 games from Canada series we played. I think the last match was the only time when we had unchanged team. And the changes has been in both batting and bowling unit so far. I think Monty Desai and team had solid into last cycle, but the start has not been good this time. The team is unsettled, but also the fact that we were playing 2 top teams at our home ground. So I expect this to improve in coming days.
John, of course, let's not forget an underlying reason for a series like this. The second tier sides really do struggle to get any game time against the bigger teams outside of T20 World Cups. I just wonder, have you got a silver bullet there? How does that change, especially with the proliferation of leagues around the world now?
Well, it's very difficult to see how it can be with such crowded schedules. I just wonder whether there's scope for them to play effectively second 11s of the top teams, maybe the Lions level, something like that.
Well, that's a pretty good suggestion. And maybe it's something for us to flag up to the ICC, get them listening to our podcast here, and fingers crossed they pay attention. The two sides involved in one of the more controversial moments of the 50-over Cricket World Cup last year, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, are involved in a T20I series as both teams prepare for the T20 World Cup later this year. That controversy was, of course, the dismissal of Angelo Matthews, timed out when he was unable to face up to his first ball in the required time because of a broken helmet strap. Matthews is playing again this time, no doubt having checked his helmet before he goes to the middle each time. But Shakib Al Hassan, the Bangladesh captain responsible for the appeal against Matthews, is absent with an eye condition, and Najmal Hassan Shanto is captaining the team. Also absent is Sri Lanka's T20I captain Wanindu Hasaranga, who's missing the first two matches following his suspension because of his explosion over an umpiring error in a match against Afghanistan last month. Matthews didn't bat in the first game as Sri Lanka won narrowly by 3 runs in a high-scoring encounter. They posted 206 for 3, but only just held on for the win as Jakar Ali blasted 68 from 34 balls in reply. John, the Sri Lankans have set their stall out for experience over youth this close to the T20 World Cup, an example being not only the inclusion of Matthews again, but also through the selection of Niroshan Dickwella as a replacement for the unwell Kushal Perera. Is it the right way to go, do you think?
Yes, I think it is for the World Cup tournament. I mean, Angelo Matthews, for example, has boosted their performance. For me, he should be in the side, one of the first names. But then it's difficult to fathom sometimes the vagaries of Sri Lankan selection processes.
Yes, it's always an interesting balance, this one, between, on the one hand, selecting just to win the match in front of you, and on the other hand, selecting for the future as well. Subas, where do you see Bangladesh in the grand scheme of things? They've never won a major ICC event. Are they equipped to win or even compete in the back end of the upcoming World Cup, do you think? Jakar Ali certainly looks an exciting talent and someone you'll be familiar with from last year's Asian Games in China.
Well, Zakir certainly did continue his BPL form. He was untested in Hangzhou with the bat, but Bangladesh have a good keeper batter. He was close to taking Bangladesh to an unlikely win against Sri Lanka. Had that shot clear the ropes, I think he would have been a called hero for sure. He'll be a great addition to this Bangladesh side, but I'm not sure if they will get out of our group. Sri Lanka and South Africa are well equipped with better resources, and Netherlands and Nepal are equally competitive. So they might get win against these two, but I think to get out of this group is a bit tough.
Well, we'll wrap up the Bangladesh-Sri Lanka T20I series as a whole in the next podcast. Australia's men retained the Trans-Tasman Trophy against New Zealand by winning the first match of a 2-test series in Wellington by 172 runs. It was an incredible match, not least for the colour of the pitch on day one. It was emerald green with a lush covering of live grass as New Zealand gambled on producing a sporty surface, but Cameron Green and later Nathan Lyon made that decision backfire. First, Green rescued his side from a parlous 89 for 4 by smashing, and I mean smashing, 174 not out, and that included an incredible last wicket stand of 116 with Josh Hazlewood. And then Lyon took advantage of the surface as it dried to claim his 5th 10-wicket haul in his Test career. John, what an incredible performance by Cameron Green. He's been pushed up to number 4 in the order to allow both he and Mitchell Marsh to play in the same side, and his innings was ultimately the difference between the two teams.
Yes, it was, much to the delight of Australians around the world, I think. After a poor 2023, that performance really shows what everyone knows Green is capable of. And if he develops as people think he will, it's going to be an awesome sight on a cricket pitch for a decade.
And John, what about Nathan Lyon? We're full of superlatives for him always, but this was another exceptional performance, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, like him or not, his story and journey is the stuff of dreams. It could have been lost to the world of cricket, but for and perseverance, great skill, never say die attitude. And it should be remembered that he's an off-spinner, not a leggy, so beloved of Australians. And his batting, of course, was a critical factor in the second innings of that Test match.
It was. He went in as night watchman and top scored. In fact, there was the incredible sight of 2 consecutive evenings of post-day press conferences with first Josh Hazlewood and then Latham Lyon, the two bowlers in the side, predominantly talking about their batting. That was something that raised the odd laugh. But Subas, what is it about Australia that seems to scramble New Zealand's brains? They have a woeful record against their near neighbours in the 21st century. They haven't won a test against them in 13 years. They haven't beaten them at home, incredibly, for 31 years. They were 29 for 5 when they batted a first time, including Kane Williamson running himself out for naught. Is there some sort of inferiority complex happening here?
Well, if you look at the New Zealand team and see the record, you'll be in disbelief. They're one of the best teams, but the record is just up similar. The fact that they're neighbors, fans get the stick from opposition makes it even worse. The only positive from here would be to come back harder and get something out in the second match. I think they have individuals who can do it, but they just need to perform collectively and hope that luck's by their side as well.
Well, John, it's not all rosy in the garden for Australia, as there were 2 failures each for Marnus Labuschagne and Alex Carey with the bat. But I guess it's easier to carry out of form players when a side's winning, no doubt about that.
I think Labuschagne's failure is a bit of a concern, though he is too good to fail too often. Looking as if Australia might have an issue at the top of the order, post-Warner, and with Khawaja coming to the end. There's a question really how many times the middle order and the form of Green and Marsh and Head can bail them out. They do seem to have a pretty the knack of not collapsing.
Yes, it's a good trait to have, no question about that. Subas, a measure of New Zealand's confusion was the speculation immediately after the match that Neil Wagner, having retired, might be asked to play again following an injury to William O'Rourke. In the end, that didn't come to pass, but the fact Tim Southey didn't dismiss it out of hand in his post-match press conference says something, doesn't it?
Well, the retirement itself came out all of a sudden, and we even saw him bowling in the nets, meaning he paved way for O'Rourke, who had impressed early. But I think the injury might have got him a second thoughts. But it's not a good thing to see, especially after that outpouring emotions in the farewell speech. It would have been an awkward conversation.
Well, the second test of the short series, with ICC Test World Championship points up for grabs, is at Hagley Oval in Christchurch, and we'll chat about that in our next episode. The Bengaluru leg of the Women's Premier League in India has wrapped up, and the sides have moved on to Delhi for the second part of the round-robin group stage. 4 of the 5 sides involved, defending champions Mumbai Indians, last season's runners-up Delhi Capitals, the UP Warriors and Royal Challengers Bangalore, were separated by just 1 win after the Bengaluru matches, while Gujarat Giants have been cut adrift at the bottom after 4 losses in their first 4 matches. That's a bit of a surprise, given the quality in their batting. The squad includes imports Phoebe Litchfield, Ashley Gardner, Beth Mooney and Laura Wolvart. John, what's been your takeaways from the first part of the tournament?
I've been surprised by the Gujarat's poor results. Delhi Capitals are strong, leading the way. There's still a lot to play for. The tournament's obviously growing, great for the women's game. I just wonder whether we're on the brink of reaching saturation point as far as these tournaments are concerned, both for men and women.
Well, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on because, of course, the women have got another big tournament coming up with the 100 in the middle of the year in England as well, in terms of domestic action, leaving aside the international cricket that's played. Subas, just wondering, in terms of the Women's Premier League, is it a case of history repeating itself with Delhi and Mumbai moving into pole position? Or can you see UP Warriors or RCB challenging that order?
I think the way Delhi and Mumbai are playing, I think it's tough to see anyone else. They look strong on paper and have replicated the performance in field as well. UP and Bangalore are both yet to play against Delhi and Mumbai. So I feel it's the repeat of 1-2 Delhi Mumbai once again.
Well, we'll have another update for you as the tournament rolls on in our next episode here at the Wicket. The The Bangladesh Premier League has finished and the Pakistan Super League rolls on, two tournaments that form part of a packed schedule in this time of the year in terms of 2020 cricket. Let's deal with the BPL first of all, which was won by Fortune Borashal, beating Comilla Victorians comfortably by 6 wickets in the final with 6 balls in hand. Borashal were criticised in some quarters before the tournament as a team that was too long in the tooth, including Mushfiqur Rahim, Mahmudullah and Tamim Iqbal, but they got the job done, and that's the best possible answer to the critics. It was Borashal's first title, and coming against a side that was the defending champion and one which has more titles, 4, than any other, so that was a really impressive achievement. The tournament featured 46 matches in 43 days among 7 sides. John, first of all, simple question, was it a success?
Well, how's that to be judged? It does struggle for oxygen amongst the other tournaments. And I just mentioned earlier, there are too many in my view, although the market seems to be able to accommodate them for now and so far. But for how long, who knows?
Subas, did it stand up against the attention from other leagues? It did have big names. Andre Russell and David Miller, as 2 examples, played for Comilla at the back end of the tournament. Did it stand up?
Well, they managed to get some big names, but I think that did not make them stand out from the rest of the league. Cricket is peaking in Bangladesh, and having big names surely elevated the standards. We always see crowds in matches, but as long as there is class of leagues, the popularity won't be stand out globally, even more when the leagues are close in proximity with Pakistan.
John, what about the standout performances and standout players? What caught your eye? I noticed Shakib Al Hassan scored 226 runs and took 16 wickets, one of the best all-round displays in the competition.
Yes, but I look at the final. Barishal's captain, Tamim Iqbal, insisted that Mushfiqur Rahim and Mahmudullah join him on the stage for the trophy presentation, and he said he wanted to dedicate the trophy to them. Mushi did a massive job in the field. He made the field changes, and it's Mushi's trophy. And that sounds like a final hurrah for them to me. So an impressive victory.
Absolutely. Well, the Pakistan Super League, as we record this podcast, sees Multan Sultans continuing their serene progress with 6 wins from 7 matches, while Lahore Calendars have finally got a point on the board, albeit thanks to a washed-out match. They and the Karachi Kings are now cut adrift at the foot of the 6-team table. Rather than focus on ongoing action, though, let's discuss the latest stage of a saga that's rolled on for the past few months, that of fast bowler Haris Rauf and his relationship, or rather his lack of relationship, with the Pakistan Cricket Board. Back in December, he declined to make himself available for the Test Tour of Australia, and then on the eve of the start of the PSL, it was announced that his PCB central contract was being terminated. Rauf then injured himself diving for a catch in the outfield in the first fortnight of the tournament, but the fallout from the issue has continued to bubble along, flaring up again now with comments from the Lahore Calendars owner Samin Rana over how the PCB handled the matter. He was quoted in the media as saying it was really poor management by the PCB, not least from his perspective, as the announcement of the contract termination came 2 days before the start of the PSL, with the implication being it destabilised the Lahore Calendars campaign before it even started. John, this is a saga that just won't go away. Is it fair comment by the Calendars owner?
Oh, I think it's not much doubt it's put them on the back foot. Is it fair? Well, I guess you would want to look for an excuse given the performance, but I think there is some merit in the comment. He said that he would never treat my employees like that. And I think that's fair. That's a fair call.
Subas, do you think there's a way back for Haris in the Pakistan white ball setup after this latest addition to the row?
Well, if things stay as it is now, I don't see Harish Rauf getting back, but he should get the place back on a sporting merit. He should make a comeback. And where does he make a comeback is a bigger question now with the role between the board and the player. I think it's never going to end well. So I think Rauf should take a step back and get going with this game now.
John, Haris Rauf aside, why have things gone so poorly for the Calendars, do you think? They're the defending champions, but really it's been a disastrous campaign, hasn't it?
Yes, it's gone from bad to worse. Injury, unavailability, indifferent performances. And as we discussed earlier, it looks like the incident has destabilised them. And this can happen in franchise competitions when you get key players injured or out of form for a vital window of just a couple of weeks. And then your campaign's pretty well scuppered. Fakir Zaham previously been the linchpin, but he's had a poor half dozen games. And they also had to contend with a sort of lopsided, very packed schedule. Saw them play 6 of their first 14 games across just 11 days.
Yes, it's interesting when you talk to players from these T20 tournaments around the world. They talk about momentum, particularly with packed schedules. If they can get a win, they can get another win, and all of a sudden the confidence builds. But of course, it can work in the other way as well. Once you start to lose, it can be a very difficult cycle to get out of. Subas, by contrast to the calendars, what are the Multan Sultans doing so right?
Well, I think Usama Mir has been exceptional. He had time to forget with Pakistan, but he's come back with Multans and doing well. I think David Willey has done his job as well. So they've got the form going, and I think the momentum is right for them to get into the playoffs and continue winning.
Well, we'll continue to stay across the PSL here at the Wicket, and we'll chat about it once more in upcoming episodes. Finally, gentlemen, what has caught your attention from the past week in cricket? What has tickled your fancy? Subas, first of all?
Well, it was amazing to see Michael Levitt performing so well in his first series. He had half century in the first game, continued with that exceptional century, and when it looked all had been done, he came on to ball in the final pressure situation. So I think he's going a long way.
Yes, he picked up 2 wickets in the final to add to all the efforts with the bat. Fantastic couple of weeks for Michael Levitt. John, what has caught your attention?
Well, 2 things. First of all, Shabnim Ismail shattering the record with the fastest delivery ever in women's cricket, 132.1 kilometres an hour, or just about 82 miles an hour for the Mumbai Indians against the Delhi Capitals. So I think that's a historic piece of performance. And the second thing is Johnny Bairstow entering a select band of players to have played 100 tests. I'm going to be featuring that along with other people who've achieved that feat in this week's column, and in which I'm going to be including a conversation with Azim Rafiq, who I think was present when Bairstow made his debut for Yorkshire.
Well, that's something to look forward to. You can go to the Arab News website to have a look at that. And of course, the Shabnim Ismail issue. She's retired from international cricket now. So that brings into focus what John was talking about a little bit earlier on in the podcast about saturation point and whether that's been reached in not only the men's game but also the women's game as well, because when a bowler's capable of performing in that way, it's a real crying shame that she's not going to be doing it for her country. Anyway, that's it for the time being here at the Wicket. We'll be back soon with more cricket chat from the Gulf region, Asia and worldwide. Thanks so much for joining us. And please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment on what you've heard wherever you get your podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback and let us know if there's anything you'd like us to feature in future episodes. For now, though, this is Brian Murgatroyd along with Jon Pike and Subas Humagain saying thanks for listening, and we look forward to your company next time.